The first golden age of Byzantine art is in the reign of Justinian from 527 to 565, and during this time, Byzantine art became recognizable in style distinct from early Christian art. In an essay by Charles Barber, one of the standard perceptions of Byzantium is that its art, although at times magnificent and resplendent, is stiff and heretic, far removed from the canon of naturalism that still underlies many of the conceptions in work of art history.
As we can see, the Byzantine Empire's location was central to very large territories such as Rome and Antioch, which left them open to commercial, economic, and political exchanges. In an essay by author Jelena Bogdanovac, she suggests that Constantinople became the Christian capital by borrowing administrative, political, and civic references from the Roman Empire. Constantinople slowly became a Christian landscape through the gradual building of churches and shrines. Not only this, but surrounding empires also transferred their religious relics to the city. This allowed for political and religious notions to be closely intertwined. This is best shown through the building of monumental religious structures such as the Hagia Sophia. This new unified relationship between the church and emperor in Constantinople was vital to establishing the empire's power to surrounding countries.
Individual saints were often commemorated, giving church followers material for meditation and a way to show that they were in company with saints. In the Hagia Sophia, icons covered much of the interior. Mosaics and icons served to a following faithful access to the spiritual world almost as gateways. Worship of the idea of God came through the image, and in doing so, caused a relationship between the present and the absent.
Architecture plays a large role in the overall culture of a society, as it shows what was most important to the rulers from this empire and the symbols of power that they wanted to display to potential enemies. Byzantine architecture has borrowed a lot from other Western European developments. Both styles are similar in structure and aesthetic concerns. For instance, the perfectly dome-shaped churches originated in southern Italy and were deliberate in symbolizing perfect order and a protected Christian city. Along with this, the mosaics around the Hagia Sophia show images of the offering of the city to the gods. Byzantine and medieval architecture specialist Robert Astarout states, "Byzantine architecture is based on the idea that each church was perfect in its own way. No two churches were made to be identical." This has a large effect on the concept that the Byzantine Empire did not aim to make any church larger than the Hagia Sophia, as not to overpower it with any other structure.
This is the Basilica of San Vitale, located in Ravenna, Italy, and constructed from the year 527 to 547. This church serves as a good example of rhetoric. Ravenna was far west from the capital Constantinople, so Justinian and Theodora never actually visited Ravenna. The church was just meant to serve as a symbol of their power. The mosaics inside San Vitale represent Theodora surrounded by the imperial court. She is wearing jewels and is the most prominent in hierarchical scale. This image would serve as a means to validate Theodora's power as a ruler. She's depicted holding a chalice of wine for the Eucharist, but most importantly, she's depicted with a golden halo. Justinian is depicted wearing purple, the color of the throne. On his right side are officials wearing purple and his soldiers. The religious figures on his left, along with Bishop Maximian, are holding religious paraphernalia. Justinian himself is holding a bowl of bread for the Eucharist. Justinian is also depicted with a golden halo around his head. In an essay on the psychology of religious art by clinical psychologist Benjamin Biet-Halami, posted by the MIT Press, Biet-Halami argues there are two major roles in art, the role of the creator and the role of the audience. And concerning on the role of the creator in art leads to the study of artistic motivation. Religious myths are fantasy, which has been created to serve the needs of both the creator and the audience. Above Justinian and Theodora is an image of Jesus sitting on earth surrounded by angels. The apse of San Vitale is located at the altar of the church. All the worshiping and religious ceremonies that would be held at the church would be directed towards the apse. Justinian, Theodora, and Jesus are the only ones in the mosaic with golden halos above their heads. In a journal titled Style and Meaning Behind the Imperial Panels at San Vitale, an art historian, Dr. Sarah E. Bassett, argues that Justinian and Theodora being depicted as Christ's representation on earth is the most important aspect of the mosaics of San Vitale because of its use as rhetoric. Without words, people would see the mosaics and understand the power that is being expressed.
After the death of Justinian, the Byzantine Empire was still at the peak of its power. However, iconoclasm started creating problems. In the article by Catherine Brown, published by New Black Friars, she summarizes the first iconoclasm that takes place during the 7th century. She states, influenced by Asia Minor, the iconoclast Emperor Leo III in 726 ordered the destruction of icons of Christ, church decorations, and altar furnishings. The suppression of icons occurred due to political motives, and the Hagia Sophia was stripped, and iconophiles were persecuted and killed.
Justinian commissioned a historian of the time, Procopius, to write The Buildings, which was a book that represented Justinian as a philosopher king. Upon Procopius's death, an unpublished book was found titled The Secret History, which told the truth about Justinian as a ruler. What Procopius tried to do is negate some of the power that Justinian and Theodora had gained through art. Procopius gives us a reason to doubt that the mosaics of San Vitale and the book The Buildings are any accurate representation of Justinian and Theodora as rulers. Assuming that the secret history is an accurate representation of Justinian and Theodora, this would only prove the idea that they had the mosaics of San Vitale commissioned in order to misrepresent them in a positive light to better serve their public image, which goes to prove that Justinian and Theodora were masters of rhetoric and using art as a means to express their power.
Justinian is best remembered as a great ruler. Some of his most important reforms include reorganizing the government of the Byzantine Empire and enacting several reforms to reduce corruption and increase accountability of the government. One of the Byzantine's last major historians, a man named Procopius, discredited Justinian's merit as an emperor when he wrote a book called The Secret History. He wrote this book because he could not openly criticize the emperor, but he wanted to show the people what a horrible man he was. In an article by Roger D. Scott, he states, during his reign, Justinian also tried to implement a new style of government. However, Procopius saw it as if he were messing with what was old and established, introducing new laws, new customs, and thus challenging the ways of life of the Byzantine establishment. In Procopius's book, he talked about how Justinian wasted money on giving gifts to barbarian leaders. He also mentioned how Justinian was remembered for his great building activity, but denies that Justinian ever repaired essential structures such as aqueducts to actually improve the empire.
During the 8th century, religious persecution is almost like a common occurrence throughout the empire. In an article by Paul J. Alexander in regards to religious persecution, he states, monks and nuns suffered most intensely, while the overwhelming of the secular clergy and laity either joined the ranks of the persecutors or gave their most secret support to the victims. From the point of the persecutors, they believed iconoclasm seemed the best means of securing their allegiance, and they believed iconophiles were weakening the empire. There are separate periods of iconoclasm as different emperors came into power, and both periods very similar. Yet this constant battle between government and church caused internal weaknesses in the empire and ultimately resulted in a loss of faith. Byzantine art after iconoclasm is very similar as before, but with more Slavic influences, and religious art was again developed to represent a relationship between icon and the viewer, but now seen as a site of desire and not transformation.